we're going to look at 2 Samuel chapter 11 this evening. This particular chapter has a lot packed into it. So I'm going to do my best to get through it and to hit the highlights. Hopefully we'll get through it and be able to even maybe touch up a little bit on, grab my phone, a little bit on chapter 12. But I also just made, so I'm going to read the whole chapter. We'll read the whole chapter together. Like I said, it's going to be 2 Samuel chapter 11. And then we'll read the whole chapter together, and then we'll kind of go through. I've made some questions here. We'll go through and just answer those together, and then we'll have some discussion. I'd really love to hear, some of your thoughts as well. I just think that it's even better if everybody can kind of contribute some of their own thoughts. So anyway, I'll go ahead and get started reading. In the spring of the year, the time when kings go out to battle, David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel. And they ravaged the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah. But David remained in Jerusalem. It happened late one afternoon when David arose from his couch and was walking on the roof of the king's house that he saw from the roof a woman bathing. And the woman was very beautiful. And David sent and inquired about the woman. And one said, "Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" So David sent messengers and took her, and she came to him, and he lay with her. Now she had been purifying herself from her uncleanness. Then she returned to her house. And the woman conceived, and she sent and told David, "I am pregnant." So David sent word to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." And Joab sent Uriah to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked how Joab was doing and how the people were doing and how the war was going. And then David said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." And Uriah went out of the king's house, and there followed him a present from the king. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord and did not go down to his house. When they told David, Uriah did not go down to his house. David said to Uriah, "Have you not come from a journey? Why did you not go down to your house?" Uriah said to David, "The ark and the Israel and Judah dwell in booths, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are camping in the open field. Shall I then go to my house to eat and to drink and lie with my wife? As you live and as your soul lives, I will not do this thing." Then David said to Uriah, "Remain here today also, and tomorrow I will send you back." So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. And David invited him, and he ate in the presence and drank so that he made him drunk. And in the evening he went out to lie on his couch with the servants of his lord, but he did not go down to his house. In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. In the letter he wrote, "Set Uriah in the forefront of the hardest fighting and then draw back from him, that he may be struck down and die." And as Joab was besieging the city, he assigned Uriah to the place where he knew where there were valiant men. And the men of the city came out and fought with Joab, and some of the servants of David among the people fell. Uriah the Hittite also died. Then Joab sent and told David all the news about the fighting. And he instructed the messenger, "When you have finished telling all the news about the fighting to the king, then if the king's anger arises, and if he says to you, 'Why did you go so near the city to fight? Did you not know that they would shoot from the wall? Who killed Amalek?' Thank you. The son of Jerubbesheth. Did not a woman cast an upper millstone on him from the wall so that he died at the Bez? Why did you go so near the wall? Then you shall say, 'Your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also.'" So the messenger went and came and told David all that Joab had sent him to tell. The messenger said to David, "The men gained an advantage over us and came out against us in the field, but we drove them back to the entrance of the gate. Then the archers shot at the servants from the wall. Some of the king's servants are dead, and your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also." David said to the messenger, Thus shall you say to Joab, do not let this matter displease you, for the sword devours now one and now another. Strengthen your attack against the city and overthrow it and encourage him. When the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she lamented over her husband. And when the mourning was over, David sent and brought her to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading of his word. Okay, lots of stuff here. So we're going to start from the beginning. I know that was a lot, but I didn't want to break it up. I just wanted to read it, and then we'll go back through and look at it. So we've got in the very beginning here, it says, if you're not familiar, here's just a little bit of backstory. So David at this point had been anointed king of Israel after much time. God has provided for him continuously. I mean, just time after time, he has continued to make a way for him. He has continued to bless him. Yes, David had made some mistakes along the way, right? But for the most part, David had sought God and had been a complete contrast to the other self-seeking kings, including Saul that was before him. So at this point, he had, like I said, he had been seeking God. He had been seeking his counsel. Like I said, he had made a few mistakes, but he was God's appointed king. Like, he appointed him the king of Israel. And I do also think it's important to mention that with that, David was also quite the ladies' man, right? He had many wives, it mentioned. He had many concubines. He liked the women, he liked the ladies, right? So that's just a little bit of backstory. And so now we have where he is the residing king of Israel. And in the very beginning, chapter 11 opens with a change of seasons in 11:1:1, right? And I'm reading out of ESV, and I should have said that. I'm sorry. We'll also reference another version just for clarity later on, but we read from ESV. So chapter 11 opens with a change of the seasons, and according to 11:1, so what typically happens in the spring? Yeah, they go to war, right? This is the time that they go to war. The weather is good for it, all the things. And so kings go to battle as well. But where is David? Where's David? He stays back. He's home. He stays back. So we have it like from the get-go, chapter 1, we see some trouble, right? So typically, this is when the kings go off to war, but he has stayed home. He's doing nothing. It says that he literally gets up from his couch late afternoon. Like, he's clearly just like taking it easy, right? And so not a lot going on. There's some idleness, I think, happening. And we know what we say about idle hands, right? And so that typically leads to trouble, right? And so David notices a lady on the roof. And what is the lady doing when he notices her? Yeah, she's bathing. She's up there bathing. And the way that the author reads, he notices, he notices the lady, and it doesn't seem to be that he just takes a quick look, right? Seems to be that his eyes tend to linger a minute, right? He lingers a minute. So he sees the lady. So he's idle. He's supposed to be off at war with his troops, with his people, and he's not. He's at home. He's being idle. He sees a lady bathing on the roof, right? And so we're going to skip down to 4. So if you skip down, you'll see. So why is she bathing? What does it say about her bathing? Why is she bathing? Yeah, she's purifying herself, which basically means that she was on her period, and so now this is a cleansing ritual. So she is actually abiding by the law, right? So she's abiding by the law. She is simply up there cleansing. She's purifying herself. This is a ritual. Why do you think the narrator makes mention of this? Like, why would it be important that that's what she's doing? Other than, yes, it is that she's abiding by the law. Yeah, yes. So if her husband's at war and she is just had her period, then she is not what? Pregnant. She's not pregnant. And it's important to know that when he sees her and he calls for her to come, she is not pregnant, right? She is not pregnant. And so that is super important in that. And just to make mention, I think that, well, okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so she's, I was getting ahead of myself. So she's doing what she's supposed to be doing. He notices her, and that's important because we know that she is not pregnant. So how does 11:2 describe the woman, the lady? She is very beautiful. She is very beautiful, right? And so yeah. Yeah. So from there, yes, she's very beautiful. And so obviously he notices her. And so it says, verse 3 says, and David sent and inquired about the woman. And one said, is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? So David sent messengers and took her, and she came to him, and he lay with her. So, did it matter to David that Bathsheba was the wife of Uriah? It should have, yeah. He seemed to just have no regard, right? No regard for that at all, right? So he knows. He decides that he's going to take her anyway, and he makes her come. And I had never I had never thought about this, and maybe you've seen this kind of comparison before. But if you look at the chart for number 5, it says, let's use this chart to look at the progression of David's actions in comparison to Eve's actions in the Garden of Eden. So I'm going to read Genesis chapter 3, verse 6. So when the woman saw the tree that was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate, and she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. So let's look at the comparison here. I've got David in 11:2. David, what a beautiful woman bathing. David saw a beautiful woman bathing. And then Eve, what? The fruit was good for food. She saw. David saw the beautiful woman was good for bathing. Eve saw the fruit was good for food. So next, David sent messengers and what? Got her, took her. And 11:4, and then Eve, what of its fruit? Took. Yeah. So we've got David took her, and Eve took of its fruit. And then we've got, and David, 11:4, continued, and David, what with her? Lay with her. And Eve took of its fruit and ate. So they both consumed what they desired, right? Not what God wanted, right? So they just kind of took matters into their own hands and did what they wanted to do, right? So had anybody seen that comparison before? I had never seen that, so I thought, okay, yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. So saw, took, and then a consumption of some way, right? So they both took and consumed something that wasn't theirs to take. So very interesting. So let's look at 6 through 7. It says, so David sent word to Joab, send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab went to Uriah to David. And when Uriah came to him, David asked how Joab was doing and how the people were doing and how the war was going. Then David said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." And Uriah went out of the king's house, and there followed him a present from the king. And Uriah slept at the door of the king, and he didn't want to go to his house. And so David uses his power, right, to get what he wants. He was definitely using his power to get what he wants. And my thought is, does this still happen today, right? I mean, he is a man of power, and he basically is just giving orders, and everybody's just following into it. So is this just obsolete now? No. Right? It happens all the time. It happens all the time still. And so as we look at verses 5 and 6, and Bathsheba tells David, "I am pregnant," right? "I'm pregnant." And he takes her, and then she says, "I'm pregnant." So who is in control of all of these events? David, right? He is just across the board, right? He has decided, he sees her. He's decided, I want to. I inquired of her, and now I want to be with her. And then sends her, back. And now he's like, okay, now we're going to figure out about Uriah, right? Because he feels like he's gotten in trouble, right? So he is in control of the events, right? Do you think that Bathsheba had any choice in the matter? No, she didn't have any choice. I mean, if she as a woman, right, as a lady, if she had disobeyed the king, what would the punishment have been? Most likely death, probably death, right? And so she had the choice of death or doing what the king inquired and asked of her, right? And I just want to make note that and some friends and I were talking about this as we read. Like I said, we were reading this together, and all growing up, like, I think Bathsheba really got a bad rap, like that she was on the roof and she was bathing, and like, did she want to be seen and all of those things? Well, first of all, she was doing what she was supposed to be doing. Like, that was the law. Like, that was a ritual. She was doing that. And David's palace was probably much taller, right, than where she was. So she could have been up there thinking nobody was going to see. And then, of course, he saw, right? And then also, as we move on, you'll see, too, that she obviously very much loved her husband, okay? And so I think it's many times portrayed that she had a hand in it a little bit. And I mean, I don't know, I could be wrong and you might have a different opinion, but I just think he was in control of the situation, right? And took that. So and that just goes to show that people are affected by our actions, right? What we choose to do in whatever position we are in. And it might not be king, right? He was king, but I mean, most all of us have some position that we are in. I mean, even as parents, right? What we choose to do, like, people have consequences based on what we choose all the time, right? And even the smallest sin or the smallest thing that enters our lives that we think that will not affect anybody else, it always does. It always does. So anyway, so how does David react to Bathsheba telling him that she's pregnant? So she says, I'm pregnant. And so what is his reaction to that? He's like, I got to do something about this, right? Like, this cannot happen. Like, her husband is, her husband's at war. He's fighting. And so I've got to do something about him. So if you look at the chart, it says he tried 3 different plans to keep his adultery a secret, right? 3 different ways to try to cover up his secret and what he had done. Which I also find is really interesting. If you go back, if you decide to read First Samuel and Second Samuel over, like I said, this is just kind of where I've been. Um, like he had, even though he was God's appointed king and he had done some really great things, he had also like made some bad choices also, and he was king. So my thing is like, I don't know why he was so scared, but I think. And it just goes to show, I just think that he felt very desperate, and people do desperate things when they feel desperate. You know, it's just maybe things that they normally wouldn't do. So anyway, so let's look at his 3 plans. He's got a plan to figure this all out. So his first plan is in 6 through 9. It says, David sent word to Joab, which is his right-hand man, his commander. He says, send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. And when Uriah came to him, David asked how Joab was doing and how the people were doing and how the war was going. So he's just making some general conversation with them, right? Hey, how are things going, right? Then David said to Uriah, go down to your house and wash your feet. And Uriah went out of the king's house, and there followed him a present from the king. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord and did not go down to his house. So what was his first plan? What was he going to do? Yeah. He's like, oh, how are things going? Go on back home, right? Why don't you go on back home, be with your wife, like all the things. And so he's thinking, okay, this is my plan. I've got this, but what was the outcome of that? What'd he do? I know. Yes, he was loyal. Uriah's so loyal. He's like, no. He's like, he ends up, he's sleeping outside of his quarters, there. And so he doesn't go back. He doesn't. So David's like, okay, well, that plan is shot. We got to go on to something else. So we've got 11. So when they told David, Uriah did not go down to his house, David said to Uriah, have you not come from a journey? Why did you not go down to your house? He's probably thinking, well, crud. Like, it's right there. Like, all you had to do was go home, right? And so I was thinking he was probably pretty proud of himself for coming up with the first plan, and then it backfired and didn't work, right? And then he says, Uriah said to David, the ark and Israel and Judah dwell in booths, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are camping in the open field. Shall I then go to my house to eat and to drink and to lie with my wife? As you live and as your soul lives, I will not do this thing. Then David said to Uriah, remain here today also, and tomorrow I will send you back. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. And David invited him. He ate in his presence and drank so that he made him drunk. And in that evening he went out to lie on his couch with the servant of his Lord, but he did not go down to his house. So what's plan 2? What's David thinking now? Yeah, we're going to get him drunk, and then we'll send him back home again, right? And so, but before that even, so like you said, Uriah is so loyal. He's so responsible. He's like, no. He's like, the Ark of the Covenant, like they're in booths, like Joab, they're all out there fighting. Like, I cannot do that. Like, how would I be able to do that, my Lord? Yeah, like, I mean, he's just, man, what a good fellow, right? And so in turn, because he's being faithful and being the good guy, David's like, okay, well, I'll get you drunk, right? And so even then, he gets him drunk. So how'd that work out for him? What was that outcome? He still didn't go. He did. Yeah, he goes to the couch. He went out to lie on the couch, and he still doesn't go. And so I can just imagine, like, if it was like a cartoon that David would have, like, steam coming from his ears, like, just being like, what is happening? Like, why won't you just go, right? Because he's really trying to cover up his sin and what he's done. Okay, so plan 3 In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. In the letter, he wrote, "Set Uriah in the forefront of the hardest fighting, and then draw back from him, that he may be struck down and die." And as Joab was besieging the city, he assigned Uriah to the place where he knew there were valiant men. And then the men of the city came out and fought with Joab, and some of the servants of David among the people fell. Uriah the Hittite also died. Then Joab sent and told David all the news about the fighting. So what was plan 3? Yeah, send him out and have him killed. And what was that outcome? He died. It worked. Finally his plan had come to fruition. So what a escalation of events here, right? Just, okay, I'm just going to bring him home. I'm going to act like I just want him to be here. He's going to go be with his wife. All is well. And okay, now I'm just going to get him drunk, send him home. All is well. And then finally, he sends him to the front lines, right? To be killed. So does Uriah's loyalty affect King David's decision at all?
I mean, it did affect him because he was too loyal. I mean, I kept putting too loyal. He was so loyal, like he wouldn't even leave his side. So absolutely, because he had to keep back. Your home, go your home. Reminds me of Happy Gilmore when he's walking the dog. Your home.
Yes, just go home. Yes. Yes.
So I mean, maybe not the way you're asking it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
David didn't care about his loyalty at all. I mean, honestly, when he killed him.
Right.
But his loyalty completely affected the way David reacted.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because the question is twofold. I mean, it really is. Yeah. 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 And that's the big, the big takeaway is that, and so that's what I've written. Chapter 11 illustrates how one sin just continues to promote another sin, just sin after sin. And like we had mentioned, the first 2 of David's plans failed because Uriah was noble and he was faithful, which makes the story so much tougher to hear. Like no one ever wants to hear that they got, killed. Like no one would want to hear that he got killed because because of that situation, because of David's mistake. But unfortunately, like we're human. Sometimes, like if he was a butthead, it makes it a little bit easier. It makes it a little bit easier, But he wasn't. Like he was a stand-up man. Yeah, he was honorable. He respected David. He was loyal, all the things. Which, like we said, sometimes just desperate people, they just do desperate things. And with that, it's okay to be desperate, but we should be desperate for God, right? We should be desperate for His will on our lives and what He wants for us. And we should be desperately trying to seek that will and seek His way, not desperate for the carnal things, right? And so, I've got quite a bit more, but that's kind of where my questions ended. So what are some of the sins that David has committed in this chapter so far? Yeah, so far. Adultery, murder, lying, deception, lust. Yes. What'd you say? Oh, yeah, yes, absolutely. Yes, his country, yes. I mean,
He probably got more than Uriah killed because of the design that he.
oh, yeah, that's,
It's not just,
yes,
not just one man.
right.
There's one thing, I hope you don't go into this later, but there's another way it's like Genesis chapter 3.
Mm-hmm.
And is that David tried to cover up his sin. Going there?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. You're exactly, yeah. You're exactly right. It was not only was it a sin, but it was just a constant cover up. Yes. Yes. And then, so the consequence is also a comparison there as well. So, which we'll talk about in just a minute. So, like I said, chapter 11 illustrates how sin just promotes more sin, and we've got lust, lies, murder, laziness, even adultery, all of those things, right? So he ruins a marriage, and he will suffer great consequence. So just like in Genesis, there will be consequences for his actions. I want to go to 26. Let's skip down to 26. Let's see. So when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she lamented over her husband. And when the mourning was over, David sent and brought her to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. So, lament means to passionately be sorrowful. So, when you are lamenting something, it is a mournful cry, like a mournful grief. It is not just, oh, I'm a little bit sad. Like, it is a hardcore, I'm like and I'm sure all of us have been in a situation where you have hurt so badly that you physically feel like your heart is broken, right? And so that she lamented for him. So she was in grievance for him. And David was responsible for that, right? I mean, like we said at the beginning, like he just continued to take and do what he wanted to do. And in turn, here we now have that she no longer has the husband that she clearly cared about and that she clearly wanted to be with. And then on the opposing side, we saw how loyal her husband was as well. So you're talking about, David caused that relationship to be broken, right? For that to be disassembled. And then at the very end, it says, but the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. But and that's the ESV version, but if you look at the CSB version, it says, however, the Lord considered what David had done to be evil. So you're talking about two totally different things here. Like, I mean, I've said before, like, okay, I'm not happy about that. Like, that makes me a little sad. You know, especially, like, you know, I'm thinking about the toddlers, like the grandbabies, you know, whatever. Like, they'll do something. I'm like, no, Lolly's not happy about that. Like, that makes me sad that you acted that way. You know, to say yeah, that's displeased. Like, that's what I think about when you're not happy about something, you're not pleased. But, like, it said, that it's a whole different ball game when it says the Lord considered what David had done to be evil. That's like another whole thing, right? And there's just a difference between being displeased and being evil, like in God's eyes, right? And so, and you'll see as we go into, and I'm just going to read like the first couple verses in chapter 12. And I hope that you'll continue to read it. But the Lord takes control, and David suffers great consequences for his actions, the same as in Genesis, right? There was great consequences for actions. But, and that's a big but, David humbly asked for forgiveness, and then God sees his heart. And the word says that God knows where his heart lies. And God knows where our hearts lie. Like, he knows our hearts, and he knows our thoughts, and he knows our secrets, and he knows our motives, and he knows our desires. And even when we make mistakes I mean, he loves us and he wants to be there for us, but we still may endure those consequences even though he loves us, right? And I just remember always, my mom and my grandmother both would always just tell me, because I'm like such a rule follower, and I like to do, like, I'm an all-in girl, you know, and so like if I'm committed to something, like I'm committed, you know, and just different times like in my life, like when I was, gosh, when I was when I was pregnant with Aaron, I was so sick. I could barely get out of bed. I mean, it was just horrible. And then, of course, when, you know, I had cancer, like there were some days I couldn't even get up the stairs. Like I spent days in bed, like literal days. I think one year Thad and them were that summer, Thad and them had gone to youth camp because I made them go. And like they didn't want to leave me there by myself, but I assured them that I would be okay. And we didn't have power for 3 days. I didn't tell him about it. So yeah, till after the fact, and I got in big trouble. But anyway, we didn't have power for like 3 days, and it didn't even matter because like I couldn't do anything. I was so sick, like I was not affected by not having power in my house for 3 days. Like that's how sick I was. So anyway, my point to say that I would be so upset if I didn't come to church, like crying on the phone with my mom, like I'm not going to be able to make it to church. I've tried getting up. Like it would take me a couple hours to get ready sometimes, like just to physically be able to make it here. And my mom would always say, Kelly, God knows your heart. God knows your heart, you know, and he does. And sometimes that can be a really, really good thing. And in that case, like he knew my heart, like he knew that I really wanted to be here. And then sometimes it can be, you know, a daunting thing when we're trying to hide what we're really feeling, right? He still knows our heart. he still knows our hearts. But I want to read one more. I'm going to wrap up. So the Lord sent, in chapter 12, God sends Nathan to David, right? He comes to him, and I'm just kind of, because I want to get to one part. So he comes to him, he tells him a parable about a man who had much taking from a man who had little, and he realizes, like David realizes, oh, like he has to tell him, like, you're the man who took everything from Uriah, and this is you. And in chapter 12, verse 8, and Nathan is speaking from the Lord to David. He said, and I gave you your master's house and your master's wives into your arms. And I gave you the house of Israel and of Judah. And if this were too little, I would add to you as much more. Why have you despised the word of the Lord, to do what is evil in your sight? So, I mean, he tells David, I have given. And if you needed more, I would have given you more. But you chose to do what you wanted to do, right? You chose to displease me and go against my word. And so because of that, he suffers great consequences. And I'm going to make you read it. Like, I'm not going to tell you all the things. Like, I've already studied it. Like, I already know all the things. But he, hopefully you will go. I mean, but he does spare his life, obviously, because he still has a plan for him. And David does, I mean, I'm sure you know, but, you know, probably not a spoiler alert, but he does very humbly realize and repent of his sin. And that was the difference between him and others before, even Saul, the king before, is that he was authentic about it. Like, he was real about it. He realized, like, hey, I have done this and I have sinned against you. And he says, I have sinned against you. I've sinned against my Lord. And even though God loves us, right, he still had to suffer some consequences. He'll always forgive us. Like, he's always going to be there for us. He's always going to have our back. But in the end, I mean, he loses his son, you know, that Bathsheba was bearing. And again, just another thing, like, she was just this she had to suffer all the consequences of his actions, right? And so many times, like I said, we think that what we do doesn't affect other people. And even in the smallest manner, everything that we do affects somebody in some way. And sometimes it might not even be what we do. Sometimes it might be what we don't do, right? If God's telling us to do something in particular and we choose not to. So, any questions about 2 Samuel chapter 11? Questions, comments, anything that you thought?